We're on. I'm having a terrific chat, as I do with all the wonderful artists whose CDs I'm reviewing. What a revelation it has been! All the wonderful CDs that have been presented to me to review, and then I do my interviews with people, meet people all over the world. In this case, I am speaking with soprano Amy Pfrimmer. She is on the faculty at Tulane University in New Orleans. Did
Very
I
nice.
did I pass? Thank you, thank you. I
Yes.
worked on that one too. And here's the other one. Que fais-tu de la vie, madame?
Oh, very
You know
well.
the song I'm referring to.
Yes.
Let's just say those of you out there, including me, who don't speak French very well, it's like, what do you do for your living, madame? And we're going to talk about that for sure. It's also a line that just jumped out at me in one of César Franck's songs. We're talking about just honestly the most delicate, exquisite, stunning, powerful CD of Franck's songs. We're speaking of the Belgian-French composer César Franck. You know, everybody knows the D minor symphony, all that stuff, the chamber music trios and sonatas and so on. But I'm not so sure that the repertoire, the song repertoire, is as well known, maybe, certainly among singers. But I think it's kind of like the revelation for me. I'm a conductor. I know all the big stuff, but for me the revelation was, wow, here was the master in these art songs. So the CD is called Souvenance. It's available it was put together by MSR Classics. It's available there. I'll put it up in all the links and things to your website and to the college and to how to buy the CD. All that good stuff is going to be up on performingartsreview.net. Can't wait. And let's see. We'll talk about the two venues. One for organ. There's organ on this CD, and the wonderful little chamber hall that you put together the recording. But to cut to the chase, I promised myself I would not babble on, and here I am. Amy is assistant professor of voice at Tulane, and just give me it's time now for the backstory. Everybody's got to know the backstory about what, when. Go, it's your
Sure.
turn.
Well, so I met Thomas Keynes, who's my collaborator for the CD. He's an organist from Strasbourg, studying. He's been training in Paris for at the Conservatoire for a long time, and also goes back and forth to Strasbourg for his work. And he's doing concerts all over France and in Germany, throughout Europe, actually. And we became friends when he was young artist in residence at Christ Church Cathedral in New Orleans. We ended up doing a couple of projects together, and then we formed this project partially because he was working on organ works of César Franck, and he asked me one day, he was playing something for me. We were working on another project, and I said, well, what are you working on? And he played a Franck piece. I don't remember what it was actually, but he played a piano piece for me, and I said, well, I just loved it, and it was something I just didn't know very well, but he asked me if Franck had any songs, and I didn't know.
Oh,
And
good. I feel saved now. I thought maybe I was
no,
the idiot.
you're totally. When you said that you didn't know, I thought, well, nobody knows, because I asked. I must have asked in the
Wow.
process of this project. I must have asked every music professional that I know, do you know any of Franck's songs? And the only thing they know is Panis Angelicus, which is it's a sacred standard, and it's done all the time at weddings, and also it can be done in orchestral concerts and things, but it just wasn't, the melodies were not something that were familiar to even singing professionals, and so I started to explore them, and then I decided that I would like to do a project of them, and I talked to Thomas about whether that would be something interesting for him. And so when we were working on another concert of French music, we started to really formulate the project, and to think about how we could really make it happen. And because of his relationship with the Church of Saint Guillaume in Strasbourg, we were able to have the home of the main part of the recording, and then also so the project came in two parts. We did the recording of most of the melodies at Saint Guillaume, but we also had another time where we rehearsed in Paris, and then we went to the Abbey at Royaumont, which is just outside of Paris, which is where the organ pieces were recorded. And there we did a live concert of the Franck melodies, but with organ, which was interesting. I think they're in many ways more beautiful on piano, but we also did the two pieces I think that work the best on organ are Nocturne and Procession, which are we did La Procession on with organ at Royaumont. And so after the concert that we did there, it was kind of a marathon. We did a long rehearsal in the morning. Well, we took the train there. We did a long rehearsal in the morning. We did the concert in the afternoon. And then we went and had dinner and had a marathon recording session into the night.
Fabulous.
And so we had, very limited time, but the Abbey was so generous with us to give us the time there, and they said, we could record all night if we wanted. So we did that, and of course, Thomas wanted to get the big organ pieces down, and that was the preferred instrument for those pieces. And I think because Thomas is a beautiful pianist, I wanted for him to play piano, but I also felt it was really important for him to be featured as an organist, since that's his primary instrument.
And let me take a quick little break here, which is that I've already told you there's no editing. I can see that there's a rain cloud developing over Santa Barbara, which means I'm starting to go dark. So let me just turn on a light and see if it helps. Hang on. Did that help? Probably not. Anyway, well, nothing could be more appropriate in referring to César Franck. He was a world famous organist. So it was also just a revelation, a great joy, the last three tracks on the Souvenance CD, these wonderful Franck pieces. But I immediately, I'm so glad I was, that I accurately thought, I've never heard these before. 13 gorgeous, I mean absolutely gorgeous songs that to me show us, all of us, the master. So the real master. These are the real masterpieces, these songs of Franck. So everybody, every vocal student that's watching this, or every professor out there that's watching this interview, run out and pick up some. And there are over 60, I think you mentioned in the program.
No. There are 18 songs.
No, I don't mean on the CD. I mean altogether. He composed something like 60 songs, didn't he?
There actually are 18 songs
altogether. So this is the whole
altogether.
Caboodle? Oh, sorry, I misread or had a senior moment.
We don't have all of them on the CD. We only put, I think we put 13 on the CD.
Now I get it.
We didn't have enough. A CD is 74 minutes, so we could only have so many. And we decided to go. Our recording time. We decided to go with the things that we felt the most confident about. And so there was one that we ended up cutting that we now use as that we're actually planning to do a concert of this CD at Tulane. It's our first chance to actually present it at Tulane since we released it last year. Thomas coming to New Orleans at the end of October, and so we'll do the complete CD, but we'll also do one piece Le Sylph, which is not on the CD, which we'll do as probably as an encore.
Well, pardon my misunderstanding, because I had this vision. Okay. Once I had the revelation, the epiphany, that these songs were absolute masterpieces. Schubert and his songs, his leader. Somewhere I thought that he had 60, and I thought, wow, this is a treasure trove. 18 is plenty. But
it's a lot, yes.
Yeah, they're all absolutely exquisite. Now I want to talk about your voice a little bit. I'm an instrumentalist. I'll just be clear here. I'm going to interview some organists, and I'm in real trouble with organists. But I love your color palette. I love the diction, and you teach diction, do you not?
Well, I have taught it. I don't. At Tulane, we're in a school of liberal arts, so it's not a music school. So we end up sort of doing things in the lessons a lot, and so I definitely do a lot of work in diction, but it's not a class that I teach currently.
Now, as you noticed earlier, my French is appalling. I took French in high school. At the time, I hated every minute of it. So you see.
But you said souvenance just perfectly. That was perfect.
Thank you. I practiced in the shower this morning quite a lot, including that little phrase about, what do you do for a living, madam? But to me, when I hear a language and I can hear the words, You know what I mean? Even though I may not understand them, I can hear that they're properly pronounced, and there's clarity of the pronunciation. That's you with the French diction in this CD. I love it. I love the style of singing. I think we kind of discussed it, and here's what's so interesting. I keep wanting to say Belgian French because I have to. He went to Paris, I think, in 1871 or something. That was the time of the fall of Emperor Napoleon III, the whole thing, turmoil, tragedy, all that. But help. What was I going to say? Something about. Well, here's what Fanfare magazine says about this CD. Let me find it now. Text-driven phrasing. Now that is exactly right, and it's so important. If there's no understanding of what the text is saying, and I mean you and I both know very intellectually and emotionally, it's not going anywhere. But there's something else to your voice, and I want you to speak to it. When you're big, you're big. When the sound is huge, you are huge. Tell me about your career. Tell us all about your career.
Well, I'm like a lot of singing professionals. I trained primarily for opera, and I certainly did recitals and things like that, and concerts of art song when I was in school. But I did relatively few until I was in the university, and that became a venue for me to, number one, to explore repertoire for my students. I wanted to, or a forum, I should say, to explore repertoire for my students, and also for myself, because, of course, when you're teaching in a university, you can go for a certain number of engagements, but you can't be gone all the time because you have to be at school to teach your students. And so what I found was that I needed to find projects that were interesting, both academically and musically, and that was part of why Franck was so interesting to me, because I found that his songs are they're miniatures of what the large scale works present, and I just found that so fascinating to hear those very compact pieces. Most of them are 3, 4, at the most 5 minutes long. And so I really do hope that if anybody is interested that's listening to the interview, I really hope you'll go check them out, because a lot of them are available on places like imslp.org, or you can get the scores through interlibrary loan and things like that. I just think they're so beautiful, and so I guess I wasn't really quite answering your question.
Well, here's another one.
Okay.
that's in the same direction. It's about what have you kind of learned from this experience? In other words, you too discovered these songs. What have you learned that you kind of about these gems that you are capable of passing on to your students? Is there anything special about these songs? You know what I mean, in terms of preparation, or vocal or tessitura or phrasing? What?
Well, there's a lot. Franck does a lot of shifting within the key. He's sort of drifting all the time, and so I think that's something that you have to really be prepared for, so that you're very accurate, so that the piece sounds like it's correct. Also, I think most of the songs are really middle voicey, and so for me as a soprano, they might sit very nicely for a lyric mezzo as well. I'm a soprano, so some of them sit down for me, but I actually loved exploring that part of my register also, because that's something I use in opera, but I hadn't necessarily used as much in song repertoire.
And it does. These songs range top to bottom.
Yeah,
you're really, as you said, mezzo. Even you're really down there. Not all the time, but there are moments he spares nothing.
Right.
And so I love the pace. And let me speak to this just a little bit. What I mean about the pace of these 13 songs, because I'm always looking for subtext. I'm expecting phrasing and tenuto and rubato, and of course we all want that. But I also really appreciate, and I'm thinking of Arthur Rubinstein, and that's how I heard these 13 songs. You are always moving forward. Somehow there is no slacking of pace, and yet within that forward movement is all this yummy stuff.
I'm
What
really
do you
happy to
think?
hear you say that.
What do
No,
you
I'm
think?
really happy to hear you say that because, that's what I want is motivated phrasing and also phrasing that honors the text. And we have
Yeah.
in these songs, we have such important texts by Hugo and Sully Prudhomme and other wonderful French writers who, they were, I mean, Franck wasn't usually making up his own texts. These are all by famous writers, and so what I'm interested in is telling the story, and that's what I tell my students every day is that what we have to do every time we sing a song is create a piece of theater, and whether you
Absolutely.
can see the singer or not, there has to be theater in the voice. There has to be a story. And my teacher, the late Philip Frohnmeyer, used to say all the time, you just have to breathe and tell your story. And the breathing motivates the phrasing. And I think
There you go.
instrumentalists do this as well. We all always are looking for what is the motivation of the phrase into the next phrase, and it's super important. So I'm very happy to hear you say that you noticed that. I appreciate that very much.
And I guess that's really an overview for this entire CD. It's just as I've said ad nauseum. I mean, it's just a beauty. It's a gem of a recording for all those reasons. And as we've been through that part of the conversation, but the idea of forward movement, steady forward movement. And I wish, by the way, conductors would conduct the Franck D minor symphony in that manner. They get all hung up, and pretty soon it's taking an hour and a half. But that's what really caught me. And then also, as you have just described, this idea that one can understand without knowing the texts, and that's. I hope it's a high compliment. I think it is.
No, absolutely. I thank you very much.
Can I ask about Tulane Opera Theater? Is that going?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Ask about that.
Do.
So, well,
I
actually,
did.
we haven't had opera at Tulane. Well, last year we gave our first opera, a complete opera, in 30 years at Tulane, and that was something that I've been dreaming about since I've been here. I've been here for 10 years, and
Menotti, right? It was a Menotti opera.
Yeah, we did Menotti, The Old Maid and the Thief, and I was able to. We had some grant support from the Newcomb College Institute at Tulane, and also private donors who helped us with to cover our costs. And we did 4 performances with 2 casts, and we. It was such a wonderful experience, both for my students and for me. I had never directed a full opera before, and so I thought, well, can I do this? I don't know if I can do this, but I thought we can have this here. This is so important for the experience of these performers, and I'm so happy that we did it. And actually, because of doing that show, we were able to get grant funding to do this spring. We're doing Hansel and Gretel. The Humperdinck opera. We're doing a full production of that. Actually, the auditions are coming right up in November, and we'll have the 2 performances in April.
I graze the web all the time looking for performances, and I'm particular. It's just a tiny, short little editorial, but I have noticed that fabulous college level performances around the United States are not being reviewed. They used to be reviewed. They're not being reviewed anymore. Even here in Santa Barbara, I used to review all kinds of wonderful performances at UC Santa Barbara. So I'll be back in touch with you on Hansel und Gretel to see.
Well, we're actually doing it in English, so you don't even have to have
Hansel and Gretel. I'll be happy to. I'll get back to you for Hansel and Gretel. But this I think is a great shame, and I want to at least interview you about that opera. I'm putting you on the spot, but something we'll work out something. But the performances at colleges all over the country this is the training ground for all of our young great musicians, and the idea that even reasonably large cities are not sending reviewers to review these performances. I just don't understand it anymore.
Well, here the newspapers here don't have a full-time critic anymore, and so we have some actually very talented writers who are doing music criticism, but they aren't asked to do very many of. Well, they certainly aren't asked to do reviews of college productions, and even for the professional productions, it's rare to get a review.
Wow.
And so, that's it's a tough thing, but I'm actually thrilled because we had there's a grant at Tulane called the Carol Lavin Burnick Faculty Grants, and
Well
so we're
done.
it's a co-production with our theater and dance department,
Nice.
Which is our first co-production. And so we're just, I'm actually, we just had a meeting yesterday with the production manager to talk about some ideas that I have as the director and things that I need. And then we'll have a full production meeting coming up in about 2 weeks. So I'm just thrilled to get really going on that.
By the way, that is exactly what goes on at UC Santa Barbara and other college campuses. In UCSB's case, theater dance is now starting to get together with the music department and produce an opera every year, and I think that's really marvelous.
That's great.
That's the way, because where else do singers learn about the art of theater than from a theater person and so on? I mean,
well,
it's just
you might find this kind of interesting. So in our opera workshop, the students don't have to be music majors to be involved. We have a lot of talented students who come here. They might want to study voice. Sometimes they sing in one of our ensembles, but let's say, last year I had one of the leads in The Old Maid and the Thief was a public health major. One of them was a political science major. One was a double in musical theater and business. So, I mean, we had the gamut of students involved in the production, and to me, it was just thrilling because, it's not just students that come to train and study music that have an enjoyment of it, and we're also training, our future audience, to know and love the art form, and that's, just as important to me as anything that we could do for our, for the music majors, and for them, I especially wanted to create the workshop. So I'm thrilled that we can continue it this year, and hopefully, it'll be a steady ensemble here.
Well, and I hope I don't get myself in trouble here, but I think it is. I kind of understand it from the point of view of academia. Some music departments will use only music majors. We've been through that with UC Santa Barbara, and then all of a sudden they said, no, just music majors only, and the symphony orchestra out there collapsed, basically. And also, as you have just said, how else do we develop audiences that inspire people that are going to become dentists or whatever, but have these talents? I just, so more power to you. And
thank you.
Definitely, I'll put you on my hit list for later.
Oh, thank you for asking about that. I appreciate it so much.
Let's do a quick little review, and then tell me what I've forgotten that you'd like to speak to. Okay? We are talking about a superb CD. Souvenance, it's called. It's put out by MSR, published in 2017. You put it together in 2016, and probably 2 or 3 years before that in preparation, all that good stuff.
It was actually 2016-17. We worked on Royaumont in 2016, and in 2017 did all the rest.
Excellent. A lot of hard work goes in, blood, sweat, and tears, musical tears go into creating a CD, and I just admire all of the people I've spoken to for that discipline and for that hard work and for putting in such an effort. But this is really special, and as we've discussed, it has this CD has on it 13 songs that a whole lot of people have never heard, that tell us all, even and especially in professional music, exactly who César Franck was as a composer. I think that's how significant these songs are. I'm going to put all that good stuff up. We're going to have a review of this CD going up, and all the links, as I mentioned earlier, so people can buy the CD and click of a button, all that good stuff at performingartsreview.net. And anything else?
I can't think of anything. Hi, Mom. How you doing?
Perfect.
Well, I think we've done. Also just give a quick mention. It's funny your timing with the interview, because I just got a shipment of my new CD, which is called "The Lost Romantic Songs of Louise Reichardt," who's a early romantic composer, female composer that is little known. You might know of the father, her
exactly.
Her dad. Yes.
He's
And
the
so,
he's
but
the
I just
famous
think,
one, you know, in a
right.
patriarchal society. He's the famous one, and she, you know, sort of is like so as so many women have. By the way, I'm so thrilled to work with so many women composers, women conductors. You know, that period that lasted for whatever 600 years is gone. I think it's still hard. I know because I've spoken with even women film composers. It's still rough, but I'm just thrilled. So wow, that'll be absolutely unique, will it
So,
not?
well, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. It has 22 songs. There are texts by German poets who were friends of Louise Reichardt, who were in the Reichardt home, and then also there are texts by Metastasio, the Italian poet who also was a librettist for Mozart.
That's the
So
connection.
you'll recognize there's a set of 6 songs by Metastasio and then 3 standalone songs by Metastasio, and then there are other the German poets, Tieck, von Arnim, Brentano,
Some known,
all
some not to me.
yes,
Some I recognize,
exactly.
some I don't. Yeah, and no, I'll be happy to put all of that up on your designated page at
Thank you.
performingartsreview.net. I guess we've about done it. We better finish. Hey, we did 25 minutes, not bad.
Hey,
And instead of
okay.
an hour and 43, as some had been. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding to everyone out there. Forgive me, everybody. And besides, I'm fading to black as it looks like it's going to be one raging rainstorm, and that doesn't happen except once every 47 years here at Santa Barbara.
Well,
Actually, last winter was bad, but so
congratulations.
well, congratulations to us all. And before it gets too dark, we better finish, or I'll be gone into darkness. What a great thrill to talk with you. It's
Oh, it's my
such a
pleasure.
great thrill. Soprano Amy Pfrimmer, Tulane University, fabulous CD that I'll be speaking to on the website. We'll see each other again, I hope.
Thank you.
All
It's a
right.
pleasure talking with you.
Okay. Bye bye.